What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far, what you should be watching for as time progresses, and also what trends are developing on the charts moving forward. But before I break into all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening to the market. So looking at SPY, unfortunately, we're showing some weakness on the chart considering the fact that we attempted to break out again. We fought this resistance at 15.5. I said in my video that if we broke 15.5, we could have pushed higher to like 516.5. But because we failed to break 515.5, we got this rejection. We were at risk of coming back down to 513.5. And if that failed us, we'd be watching 512. And we ended up getting a big rejection. So SPY is showing some weakness. I also want to mention that the daily time frame on SPY is looking even weaker because it popped and dropped, and we have a big gap to fill below. So this chart is showing more and more weaknesses as the day progresses, and we're seeing more bearish momentum building. So it's not looking too great. Also, on the 4-hour time frame with the extended hours on, you'll notice that we simultaneously have a possible head and shoulders. I know that they don't really play out as well as they used to. Sometimes they're used as traps, but this does resemble a head and shoulders. This is like a left shoulder here, head and a right shoulder. So the chart has attempted to bounce, but now it's starting to show some weakness. So I think everyone has to be very careful in trying to trade this, especially when looking at this new development. So what's happening with the markets? What's going on with data and stuff? I want to just talk about that real quick before I break down more details on the charts. So for today, we had very minor data. It didn't really affect us that much. We did see the market start to sell off after the bill auctions came out. But for Tuesday, March 19th, which is going to be tomorrow, we have a lot of housing data coming out in the morning, housing starts, building permits and such. And then we only have two main pieces of data coming out intraday. At 11:30 a.m., we have the 52-week bill auction coming out. And then at 1 p.m., we have the 20-year bond auction. Then after that, it's all after the market closes when we have more data and stuff coming out. So we'll see how things go. But I just want to mention that right now, this is what the intraday data is showing us. And we'll just have to see what happens with it. Now, besides that, do not forget that for Wednesday, March 20th, we have the FOMC meeting. We have the interest rate hike decision coming out at 2 p.m. We have the economic projections coming out for 1 year out and 2 years out from the Fed. That's going to be the most important piece of data, in my opinion, because the Fed, not the Fed, the market knows that the Fed is most likely going to skip at this point. There's a 99% chance they're going to skip, not really change the interest rates. So this suggests that the Fed is most likely going to make bigger announcements during their projections. Are they going to be more hawkish or not? Because we just got two hot inflationary reports where inflation was a little bit hotter than expected. Or are they going to keep things the same? That's what we're going to have to watch for. I think that's what the market's going to react to. And then after all of that, we have the one and only the big guy, Jerome Powell, giving a speech at 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So we'll just have to see what happens when that goes on, what Jerome Powell ends up saying. So with that being said, guys, Wednesday is going to be a very crazy day. Tomorrow is preparation for that. We have some housing data, but the charts are looking a bit more bearish going into tomorrow nonetheless. Now for earnings, I'm not going to talk about anything in particular, but I just want to show you guys the calendar in case you guys missed it. And let me just note that for the week, we do have some names worth noting like General Mills, Chewy, and then also Nike and FedEx are two big ones for Thursday. But nothing is too like absolutely insane, nothing like big tech or anything like that. And we're coming to a conclusion with this earnings cycle, so not much will be coming out for a couple of months. So I will mention a couple of them here and there, but that's pretty much it. For the last thing I'm going to talk about before I break down some charts is we have the fear and greed index. This is still at greed. I think it's going to start shifting closer to neutral as we approach FOMC. Things are still extremely greedy, but the put and call options, the ratio is going up a little bit as we're seeing more puts being bought and shorts are starting to pile into the markets again. Also, the VIX is still very neutral, not really doing a whole lot, still hovering around the 50 daily moving average. So, I'm not really seeing many changes so far on the trends, but there is a risk of a big shift in volatility after FOMC and after we get more data. So that being said, guys, what do I see happening on the charts? Let's talk about how things are looking. Honestly, guys, SPY was trying to rebound, trying to bounce, and the move ended up failing. And SPY is once again looking a little bit weak. So we're currently at 512. If we're bullish, hypothetically, make sure you watch resistance at 512.5, 513.5. If we break that, there's 514.2. That's where we rejected at the very last hour, 514.2. Then we have 515 to 515.5 above that. That's going to be tight resistance. For support, make sure you watch this 511.7 area. If we lose that, there's a big risk of us coming all the way down to 510. If that fails us, there's 508.5 coming, followed by 507.5. Now, looking at the charts, let's just go over a couple of things. I noticed that we technically have some bearish looking structures developing on this chart. Let me just show you on the 4 hour, it looks a little bit better. The 4 hour is showing kind of like a head and shoulders like structure. So we have this left shoulder here, a head and a right shoulder. The daily I just showed you was looking weaker on SPY, and we have this gap below. So a lot of things are now suggesting that SPY was trying to break out, and we got to fail. It failed to really get much of a bounce. We're going to be testing our 4 hour 50 EMA at 512.31. If we lose this, 512 supports, get ready, guys. I think we're going to come all the way down to 510 and then see some consolidation. So I think that the chart's showing some weakness. It might pop, grab a little liquidity, then continue to sell off as the most likely possibility. I think we're going to fill this gap down here at 510 very soon. Then we'll see what it does once it gets down to 510. If we lose that, 508 is coming again. And if that fails us, we could come down to 507, then 505. But the chart looks more bearish now. It was trying to rebound. It was showing some potential. And if it continued to break out, it could have kept going, but it failed to break resistance. So now we're coming back down. Look for a little pop. They might try to re-grab liquidity and continue to sell off all the way down to 510. That's how SPY is looking. On the QQQ, we have a very similar chart. On the QQQ, this was heavily dictated by Nvidia, but Nvidia is not getting the bounce we could have seen because so far with the big conference, not really much is happening. I'm not really seeing this affecting Nvidia much, so it's still remaining as it is. So with this downtrend on the QQQ, look at the trend. We're in a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. We tried to break it, tried to retest, get past this resistance. This is where we had our sell stop, and then it just rejected right there. So it rejected sharply. I warned everyone that if we lost 438, watch 436, and it came down. So with this pop and drop like move, what can I tell you about the QQQ? Well, we have this big gap just like SPY at 434, and I think that we could see a retest of 438 or so, but because we're back in this bearish channel, there's a very, very good chance it's going to come all the way back down to 434 and eventually lower levels. The QQQ is showing some weakness, in my opinion. Not looking the best. I think that there is a risk of this thing selling off even more. The 4 hour is showing a lot of weakness to fill this gap. We got this rejection off our 50 EMA, so I do anticipate more downside coming. Simultaneously, I think I saw a head and shoulders like structure. It's not as clean looking, but I sort of see this on the 4 hours. So there's a risk of this coming down, getting closer to the 200 EMA at 431. So I anticipate some downside on the QQQ approaching FOMC. The charts are showing some weakness. On to Tesla. Now, Tesla is very ironic because Tesla was selling off really hard when the market was uptrending. And now that as the market is coming down, what's happening is Tesla's getting hit with bullish news after bullish news. Tesla increased their prices. Tesla was the number one selling car in Norway. Kathy Wood bought Tesla. Lots of good news came out. Tesla's trying to push higher, but be careful on Tesla because we're approaching some tight resistance at 175. Now, if you're bullish, you want to see Tesla pretty much just break this 175 resistance. This is actually really close to this. Let me show you on the 4 hour, I believe the 50 EMA. That's very close to, that's exactly at 175. If we break this, I could see 178 and then eventually 180 on Tesla. But then we still have tight resistance up there since we rejected in the past. So it could either go a little bit more and then reject, or if we fail to break 175, we could just reject from here. It's a little hard to tell because it depends on the news. Tesla has been extremely news dependent for quite some time. So the best thing to do is just be patient and see. So either Tesla pushes a little bit more, grabs liquidity, and then comes back down later, or it just rejects from here and starts to retest this yellow trend line. If we lose this, we could be coming all the way down to lower levels. Watch 172, 170, 168, and then 165 as supports. Watch resistance at 173.75, 175, and then 180. I predict it's either going to pop a little bit more and then eventually start to sell off a bit back down to 170 or even 168, or it could just fail from here if we fail to break 175 and come back down. So either it pops a bit more and then it starts dropping, or it could drop from here. The reason why I'm less decisive on Tesla is because it depends on the news, right? The news is really dictating this. Well, not really. They use the news as an excuse to dictate Tesla, but I just want to say that if we just take it for what it is, it depends on the news. It depends on what they want to do with it. So we'll just have to wait and see. If the market starts selling off a bit, that could be a little anchor for Tesla. So be careful. And we also have Aapl. Apple is like, it was trying to break out, right? We finally showed some hope. And, and then, excuse me, it ended up just coming all the way straight back down, right where we started. So it failed, unfortunately. Watch 174 is resistance, 175 as well. Watch support 172.5 and then 170.9. I think that this chart could retest 174 if we get another rejection like before. We could be on our way down to 172 and eventually 170 all over again. Big rejection on Apple, showing some weakness, not looking the best. How about Nvidia? Nvidia has resistance at 872, 877, and 885 is very tight levels. Support watch 862. If we lose this, there's a risk of us coming all the way down to about 852. In my opinion, the chart's on this downtrend, looking kind of weak. It was trying to rebound with all the data that came out and with all the excitement about the event. But as soon as the event has started, this thing is just selling and selling and selling. I'm not really seeing a bounce right now. So it's not looking the best. This could drag the QQQ down. So please be very, very mindful of that and be very, very careful. There is a risk of this coming down lower to 862 and eventually the 850s. So Nvidia is looking weaker. As far as other stocks out there go, Rivian showing some strength, but we're approaching resistance. If we could break, I would say 11.44, we could go a little hard to 11.7 and then reject, or we might just reject off our 20 EMA, start sinking back down towards 11. So I do see Rivian rejecting, maybe cooling off a bit. Either pushes a bit more and then rejects, or rejects from here. So be careful. For SoFi was trying to push. It could push a little bit more. I could see this thing actually tagging 7.18, then coming back down a bit. So look for a little pop and drop like move. ARM was trying to rebound, but now it's not looking too great because the 50 EMA is tight resistance and we're below our 20 EMA. So there is a risk of this returning back down to about 127. For super micro, we're looking kind of bearish because first off, we have a bearish structure on the 4-hour time frame. We're going to likely retest 952, and I see this thing coming potentially down to this imbalance right here at the low 900s. It's looking very bearish to me. So I see more downside for this. I think it might be sinking closer to 900, if not our 200 EMA down to 850. So I see more downside on this chart. For Palantir, still looking decent, still holding up. It could push a little bit more with watch resistance at 24.26 and then 24.6. Somewhere at these levels, it's going to pop a bit, then reject or reject from up here. So we'll just have to see how it does. For the IWM Russell 2000, got a big rejection. It was trying to bounce today and it failed. Now it's going to be testing 200.37. If we lose that, 198 is coming, so watch 200. If that fails us, we're going to sink lower. We are going to likely test that and drop a bit to start off tomorrow. Microsoft, it tried to rebound a bit. It's trying to slow down just a little bit. It was trying with this test of 420 and rejecting. If we continue to hold below 416, there's a risk of it coming down to 413.8, and I do favor that somewhat more. So now the chart's showing weakness, so a big transition in the market. For AMD, we're looking a bit more bearish. It was trying to rebound. Look at this. It was trying to hit the 50 EMA. It failed, and now it's going to likely come down to the 20 the 200, excuse me, EMA, which is going to be around this 181 area. So I do see some downside on AMD. It tried to bounce and it ended up failing. The VIX, as usual, completely indecisive. On a day like this, it could have been flat. It could actually try to bounce. I think the VIX is going to remain flat until we get some words from Jerome Powell. Same thing with the dollar index. Now, the dollar broke through the 200 EMA. This is a sign of weakness for the market because the dollar is gaining strength. So if the dollar keeps pushing, we could see this thing get close to 104. If it reaches 104, that's going to be a little bearish for the market. So be very careful. Be careful with that. For Coinbase, we were trying to break out and we ended up rejecting. I was talking about how this thing had a downtrend, but because it failed right here to get a break of 240, there's a risk of it coming down to 236 and eventually lower levels. So be careful on Coinbase. For Google, this thing has been attempting to uptrend. It did pop a bit. Now it's coming back down. So if we lose support at 147, I see this thing potentially coming down to 144. If we fail there, we have a gap to fill. So I do see a little downside coming. Google just grabbed liquidity. I do see a big shift in it. For Amazon, it was trying to rebound. Now it's trying to fail, looking a little bit weaker. I think that there is a risk of this coming down to support at 174 flats. If we lose that, watch 172. For Meta, I think that Meta has been trying to show some strength. It's actually looking pretty decent so far. As long as we hold above 494, I do see 500 coming. So Meta might actually outperform the market a bit and try pushing higher from that end. So that being said, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And remember, guys, get adequate amounts of sleep. I have not been sleeping much lately, but I'm going to try to improve that as soon as I can. So please take care, guys. Enjoy the evening. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very, very soon tomorrow morning. Thank you for listening, and peace out.